You're still watching Nigeria Decides on Plus TV Africa, and we all know that the elections is just coming up in about 48 hours.
That's true, 2 days.
And from the Court of Appeal in Sokoto that dismissed an appeal against the judgment of the Zamfara State High Court asking the Independent National Electoral Commission to recognize candidates of the All Progressives Congress for various offices in Zamfara State. And other stories, well, that formed in our conversation just before that short break. But this time around, we are looking at security deployment for the elections.
Yes, absolutely, because we know that the Nigerian police is out to take its place as the frontline force during this election, and they have come out boldly to say that the military won't be playing such a central role as we have seen in elections in the near past in Ekiti and Ogun State. And joining us now for a conversation on the security setup ahead of the elections, we have Babasola Adegbuyi, YPP gubernatorial candidate, Ogun State, joining us. He's coming back. He was here with us earlier. And we also had Raymond Nkannebe, legal practitioner, joining us again. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on the program at this time. Now we're talking about the security system, and we know that 300,000 as it is, police officers have been deployed for the election, and that appears huge. But then coverage is also another issue, and that's why we have seen militarization of the polity in some of the elections we've had that some have said is a litmus test to what we will see. But now we have a new police boss on the block. 300,000. How good is this? Starting with you, Babasola.
300,000. It all depends on the total number of polling units we have in the whole country, and for us to also determine if that is enough or sufficient for the election. What are the responsibilities of these the police during the election? We need to know those ones. Number one, they are to protect the ballot papers. Number two, they are to protect the ad hoc staff of INEC. Number three, they are also to protect the electorate. The question now is, how many security men do we actually have in Nigeria for us to know if 300,000 is just part of a certain percentage of the number of security men we have in Nigeria? Then that's number one. Number two, for us to know if it is enough, other security agencies, are they also participating in this
yes,
election?
Other security agencies are participating because according to the National Commissioner with INEC, Festus Okoye, said that, for example, with the election will be utilizing the services of the Nigeria Air Force in lifting sensitive materials to various states, and also lift within the states areas that are difficult to enter. And then for riverine areas, INEC would also have to hire individuals that will man gun boats to escort both sensitive materials and election personnel. So that obviously should be part of those who would be.
Well, if they are part of 300,000,
adding to the 300,000,
we are adding to 300,000. Yes. I think it will be enough, because if we have the Nigerian Civil Defense Corps, we have the road safety there, and we have this particular, I've forgotten this particular group too, that if we can have all of them added them to the 200,000, I think to an extent it will be enough.
Okay, definitely we have seen, I was a presiding officer during the election in 2015, and I know that in that polling unit there was only one policeman. Thankfully there was no breakout of violence, but then I kept thinking, what if there had been a problem? Would he have been able to manage it? So do you think that with the number, the strength of the force, the security personnel that have been deployed, that we will have maybe more than one police officer manning a polling unit? And of course, we know, of course, they won't be armed at the polling units. That's another issue, because we know that violence is something that you cannot say when it will happen and how it will happen. So how would you react to this situation that we're in now?
Well, for me, at the last count, we have close to 200,000 polling units across the country. It should be between 195 to 198,000 polling units. So when you do the math, if you're working with 300,000 policemen, so that means scarcely two
to each polling unit.
Per each unit, you get. And then when you look at the corners of this country where you have that porous security-wise, can 2 persons actually man a particular polling unit? You understand? Like in flashpoint state like Rivers, Adamawa, Akwa Ibom, Plateau, Kano, that have been identified. So you have to send more men there. So that will now put pressure on the numbers for the other states. You understand? I understand the difficulty of the Nigerian police. We have scarcely 400,000.
350,000 actually.
So they have deployed at least almost 80% of you understand. So it goes to also speak to the paucity of in terms of numerically of members of the force. So I don't think the number is enough, and we don't have a figure for the NSDC. The road safety, we don't have a number to work with.
To support.
Yes, if we had like say 100,000 officers, we can work with that calculation, but we don't have a number. So,
but now in terms of using intelligence, because at the end of the day, we understand there are areas of flashpoints and calm zones, but don't you think that we also have to think of situations where likely there might be a breakout or individuals who think they want to perpetrate violence would now use the opportunity and say, well, since you're turning a blind eye to this area, we are going to do as much damage as possible. What do you think the security arrangement or the security body should be doing, especially in that line? Areas where we don't expect violence to break out, but what should be the backup plan, just in case?
Well, presently, like I always tell people when it comes to security, don't roll out anywhere. In security, you don't know who is planning for whom. But from what we have seen in the past few weeks during the campaign, for now we should be able to know where the state or the area that are more likely to be volatile during the election. So where we have 1 or 2 policemen guiding the polling unit, I'm sorry, they have.
But I'm even saying that if we are having so much of a concentration at the volatile areas or likely volatile areas, it isn't so smart or wise to turn a blind eye and say, well, we don't need so much of security personnel or coverage around the areas that are not expected to be violent. Because this is a keenly contested election and anything can happen.
And with all that we've been seeing and all of these court cases, pending judgments and protests,
Yes. Well, let me just try to amplify what I said. The numbers we are working with is very, very meager. And we can only leave the whole process to chance and hope that we will not have high case of violence across the polling unit.
Now, already 6 DIGs have also been deployed to the 6 geopolitical zones. What also do you expect from these DIGs? Because yes, they've said around their operational zones they are all committed and saying that they're going to be free, fair and whatever, beyond any politicking of the deployment of these DIGs to those areas. But what do you expect them, especially when it comes to delivering on their mandate and ensuring that every single police officer is neutral?
Well, the responsibility of the DIG is to give instruction. The DIG will not be outside there, or maybe once in a while, if he feels like, go out to see what is going on outside there. So what is expected of the DIG is to pass instruction down even to the least person in the police and inform them or instruct them on what to do. Mind you, the DIG is taking instruction from the INEC now, because INEC is now the boss from tomorrow and Saturday. So not the president. So the DIG is taking instruction from the INEC. So what is expected of that is that the DIG has to get information from INEC, which will be passed down to the least person in the area. So the DIG has a lot of job to do, but in most cases, like I said, they are not going to be outside there.
And what about the DIGs who would also coordinate the full strategic election security operational plan from the force headquarters as well?
Well, just the same thing. AIG is just the next person to DIG. They are not going to be outside there, although the AIG will be in different maybe zones or different states to coordinate the activities of the policemen in that particular area. You get those you will see outside there are from inspector down. downward. You not see the ASP upward outside there. If you see the ASP upward outside there, maybe they're just moving around the city or the town during the election. But those that will man the polling unit are the constable, the corporal, the sergeant, or most like maybe the inspector. Maybe the inspector, and they are not going to be harmed. You get so. Okay.
Now, what are we expecting by way of air surveillance? Do we expect that drones will be, you know, up there, and that we'll also have maybe observers working with the Air Force to ensure that the election is well observed from that vantage point? Of course, from up there, everything is under scrutiny. So, essentially, what are we expecting by way of air surveillance? Raymond.
Well, the Nigerian Air Force have indicated their interest to be fully involved in the whole process, and from what we've seen, from how they've performed in the Northeast, I'm sure they're going to also do their bit. They understand the nature of the job. It's what they are trained to do. They understand the flashpoint states too. I'm sure they're going to be all over the sky on that day, monitoring activities, and to the extent of which they get information from the ground, and also covering to make sure that things don't get out.
Talking about getting information from the ground, how much of a synergy do you expect to see this time around when we're talking about community policing, and then ensuring that, well, we have our local vigilantes and a whole lot more also supervising or assisting, if we may use that word?
Well, I think the chain of communication, do have a chain of communication, how these things is being taken to.
You know, the vigilantes are not necessarily co-opted or labeled under the police force or under the Navy or Air Force team, and a whole lot more. It's a unit on its own, actually.
And then we've had issues where how the security officials interface has always been a problem, because sometimes you find that this group is working at cross purpose with the other. So what kind of arrangements or engagement should these security officials should be having, such that we have smooth working relationship?
Well, it's just unfortunate that the security guys are not armed with walkie-talkie or whatever. Most of the time, some of them will only make use of their phone. I can tell you, most of them, they don't have credit to pass information across. You get my point. And even if they do, they will not be willing to make use of their credit for that purpose during that period. So what is actually expected? On a good day, the Nigerian police or the INEC should have given them all these materials for easy dissemination of information or easy report at each polling unit in case there is any issue or in case there is a need for any improvement, just for them to have it. Just for them to have the, what's it called, update of what is going on. But now, in this case now, on the election day, what is expected of the man at the polling units is to stand there, ensure orderliness, ensure everybody, and anyone that wants to cause violence or whatever there is expected of that person to tell Mr. Man, that's either you join the queue or you go your. But how many people will actually listen to one policeman at a polling unit?
That's the question. Now, we also know that there will be dusk to dawn curfew on election day. Now, that's one thing that a lot of people over time have failed to understand. So, essentially, what is expected of Nigerians at this time, knowing that we have an election on our hands? Where should people actually be during the election? And we also know there's going to be vehicular restriction. Road safety is committed to that. They have put out a statement to say that they will do the needful. So what should Nigerians do on election day by way of movement?
What is expected of Nigerians is, number one, if you have your voter's card, go to the polling unit, queue, do the accreditation, cast your votes. If you wish, stay back, be part of the counting. And if you don't wish, please, you can go back home. And for those that are not voting, whether they have their PVC or not, they are expected to stay back in their house. You are not expected to move around. You know, some people are saying that the business or the productivity of the nation for that period will be affected. You get my point. The truth is this: Nigeria, we have not actually gone to that stage whereby we can be casting our vote just like it's been done in the US or the UK. You get until we get to that stage, I don't think there's going to be any lift on the the restriction of what's it called, movements during election period.
So it should be between your house and the polling unit and nowhere else, Raymond.
Well, those as I said, Nigerians understand very much how keenly contested this election is, and they're also aware of the different issues in different parts of the country. So there's a tendency that there might be outbreak of violence. So to be on the safer side or the safest side, if you're not casting your vote, you stay back home. If you cast your ballot, you can walk back to home and then observe proceedings from your vantage point of your home.
Babasola, now that we are going to be seeing the police taking central stage, what do you also expect when it comes to arrest and prosecution? Because at the end of the day, some would say that, well, the police can always be compromised, or they are not even stronger force to deal with some of this misconduct or disorderly manner, and people think it's just going to be business as usual. Misbehave, have misconduct, misdemeanor, and then you think you'll get away with it. But when it comes to the police now re-strategizing, regaining their integrity, how much do you expect them to push arrest and prosecution this time around, especially when it comes to, in relation with electoral misconduct?
Well,
not unnecessary arrest, though.
Well, for me to say anything on that, I first of all have to have a flashback on what has been happening in the past elections in respect of what the involvement of the police in respect of prosecution, arrest, or whatsoever. Now, what has happened in the last part, in most cases, actually, it's only very few people you will read in the newspaper, so person has been arrested with a total number of ballot paper, or so person caught white on printing. At the end of the day,
it fizzles out.
You get it. So if this is different, I will be disappointed. Yes, if it's different, because I've known Nigerian police to compromise.
Well, the new AIG says that, well, we are going to have it neutral. So now my question is this: on the level of arrest and prosecution, what is your expectation, and expecting them to deliver on that mandate that when you catch somebody, you arrest, make sure it goes through the due process, prosecute, and he faces justice? It's not going to be business as usual. What do you expect of their delivery this time?
Well, he has to convince me. No, that's number one. Number two, the people you are arresting, are they connected to the big boys? You understand what I mean by the big boys, as in the big boys in that particular locality. Yeah. If it's someone that has to do with the godfather or the mentor or the financial...
That means investigation has to continue through beyond that first arrest.
Well, and definitely, investigation. That's why I said he has to convince me, because for the rest in the past, it's always fizzled out. So, nothing, to me, nothing new will come up.
Now, the UK government has expressed dismay, and it's saying that there are indications that the security forces will not be neutral ahead of the election. Now, is there something to go by, and what should the security system, starting with the IGP of police at this point, do to ensure that Nigerians are confident that the police is out there to protect the country and not the interest of anyone else? So what should the police do at this point? Because we need to be confident that they are there and that they will do the right thing and not necessarily banter to any party involved in the election. If this is coming from an international body, it's something that we can go by. So what should happen now?
Well, it's common knowledge that the neutrality of security agencies at elections has always been a sore point. You understand? And the last elections we've had just recently, Osun and Ekiti State, when you study the petitions, you hear allegations of police officers being used to intimidate voters and also to work in support of the certain political parties. So the observations of the international community is not misplaced. So the question then becomes, how do we make sure this doesn't repeat itself this time? Like I said before now, I want to give the new IG of police the benefit of the doubt. He has told Nigerians that he is a professional and that he's going to use this election to be the test of his professionalism. So I believe he should tell them that at elections, the role of the police is within the bounds of what is delineated in the Electoral Act. They have a very narrow role to play, provide just civil cover, and if somebody is caught flouting provisions of the law, pick them and prosecute them. You don't have to you should be blind to any political considerations.
We know that the IGP won't be everywhere. So how essentially can he rein his voice in and ensure that those who go against the dictate, the right thing to do, those who are not neutral, those who are indicted in some of those issues that you raised, are brought to book?
Well, that's why we have the DIGs also spread across.
That, it's a pyramid, and so the command, the chain, it goes down, and we also have to hope that the levels of communication they will spread the same level of integrity in the discharge of these duties.
Okay, well, we've definitely have a very insightful conversation. We are hoping that the right things are done and that the security officials live up to the expectation. But then, sometimes you look at security and you find that it is not a one-off. It is not enough to provide security during the election. Even before the election, it starts with INEC offices. We know there were fire incidents at INEC offices, 3 places, Abia State, then we had Plateau, and then Anambra. So going forward, when should security be beefed up at INEC offices to ensure that we don't have issues where we are faced with the possibility, sad possibility, that if INEC actually says they cannot conduct election in those places, who can blame them? So what do we need to restructure about our security, our approach to security, to ensure that INEC gets it right from the beginning?
Well, the Nigerian security system is largely reactive and not proactive. So I like to see a police force that is more proactive. How do they become proactive? Understanding, doing things beforehand, and not when things have gone out, things have gone south, that you try to make them better. I like to see them to be alive to the possibilities that that could happen, and then try to cushion the effects of all of that even before they happen.
Okay, Babasola.
Well, I agree with him. They have to be proactive. Number one. Number two, the INEC officials also need to give necessary training to the security agencies. Actually, most of them don't know why they are securing the INEC offices or INEC materials, I want to assume. For example, now, was it not last week or just this week that a particular police officer burnt INEC office after drinking himself to stupor? You get my point. So the question, number one, what was he doing with matches? Drunk? Was it with petrol or whatever? You get my point. So a lot of them needs to be orientated when it comes to election time. It's not a matter, oh yeah, go and man, how you ban, and you believe that's the head. So they need to give the necessary orientation or training in respect of INEC duty.
I should also add that the welfare of the officers of men should also have to be taken into consideration. Because when they are not properly, when their welfare is not actually factored, it tends to affect how they perform when they go into the field.
Hopefully we get things right. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for speaking with us. We've been speaking with Babasola Adegbuyi, the YPP Guber Candidate in Ogun State, and by March 2nd, you would also be contested. Thank you very much. And Raymond Nkannebe, thank you very much. He's a legal practitioner. Thank you very much for
it's a pleasure
having a beautiful conversation with us. And that's all the time can permit us to talk about this evening.
That's right. It's been a wrap, talking about voter education. And then we heard the president speaking to Nigeria in the State of the Nation address. And then, of course, we talked about the INEC and cases pending in court, the Zamfara issue. And then we're rounding off with the security deployed for the election. Don't forget that Nigeria Decides comes back tomorrow at exactly 6 p.m. Thank you so much for watching. I am Aronu.
And I'm David Alabi. Many thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Goodbye.